What's up, Family Liberty? Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug here, and it turns out that mine Furious Orange Julius and his lapdog D-list weekend Fox News extra Pencil Dick Pete Hog's Breath decided that the Army and the other service branches will end their enlistment efforts at the Black Engineer of the Year Awards. This is an annual event that invites students, academics, and professionals with the expertise in science, technology, engineering, and math. And listen, it makes sense. It makes sense, family, because anyone who hasn't already traded in their freedom, individuality, decency, and self-respect for a red hat that says I'm with stupid, everyone but them knows that getting rid of DEI was never about finding the qualified people for the job. We all know that what DEI actually stood for was, we don't want you dirty black monkeys in our fucking army, no matter how smart or qualified you are. Go back to picking cotton where you belong, you right? Anybody with more brain cells than teeth knows that that's what they meant by DEI. But I figured, for the rest of us, the rest of us who can tie our own shoes and dress ourselves in the morning without help from Meemaw, we could celebrate Black History Month by giving an example of the kind of talent our new United States Army will be missing out on, now that they've officially changed their recruiting slogan from "Be all you can be" to "Yours need not apply." And today we start with Sergeant Henry Johnson. Henry Johnson is perhaps one of the most remarkable military heroes in U.S. history, and he happens to have been Black. A member of New York's 15th Infantry Regiment who became known as the Hellfighters of Harlem. Private Johnson arrived in France in December 1917. He, like the rest of his unit, expected to conduct combat training and enter the trenches of the Western Front. They could not have been more wrong, family. The Black troops were ordered to unload supply ships at the docks for their first months in France, joining the mass of supply troops known as stevedores, working long hours in the port of Saint-Nazaire. After begging and pleading from both the French, who needed soldiers, who needed fighters, and the poor dock workers who were trained as soldiers and getting pretty antsy, finally, the U.S. Army decided to hand off their second-hand soldiers, their Black dirty shoelaces, and give them to the French, even though before that, the generals all said that anyone fighting in this war from America would be fighting under an American flag, except the Black ones. But that's okay. You see, Private Johnson, he found himself in no man's land, with Private Needham Roberts manning a listening post, and Needham Roberts hears click, click, click. They both realize that somebody's cutting the wire. They're in the midst of a German raid, people. So, Private Roberts starts passing Private Johnson grenades, and they line up these grenades, setting up an assembly line of defense. And here comes the Germans. They come across the lines, and almost immediately, Roberts gets hurt. So Henry Johnson is left to defend their position and to stave off this attack by himself. Now, family, Johnson obviously had a dedicated and effective drill sergeant back at home, because he begins to aim, then breathe, then hold, then fire that obviously well-maintained weapon that has been zeroed to precision beforehand. Then he repeats, and then click. He's out. Henry hurriedly picks up the nearest cartridge to him, left on the ground by his now injured battle buddy. And this turned out to be Private Johnson's only but costly mistake. You see, Johnson unknowingly jammed a French cartridge into his American rifle, and that rifle responded in the way that it was designed to. It stopped firing, and the Germans are now right on top of it. Unfortunately for the Germans, they were introduced to a motivated, well-trained warrior of these United States Army, and he was a Black man. He used his rifle like a club, beating them back, and back. And then, while defending his wounded battle buddy that was being picked up by other Kaisers, he defended them with a knife. That's against the Kaiser's best, mind you, and he turned them around in fear. But even as they ran, those cowards, a second wave began their advance. In the fray of battle, our warrior gets shot in the foot. A debilitating injury, mind you. This would affect him for the rest of his life. But he fights on, never giving up. He fights them off for what he said it seemed like an hour. And the Germans ran shrieking into the night, YouTube, all because of one man, a 5'4" black man, a warrior, a soldier, Private Henry Johnson. It's not until the next morning that people realize what a tremendous act of bravery, of warfare this was. They discover 4 bodies of dead German soldiers, but they also realize from the equipment and the other things left behind that as many as 30 may have been involved in this altercation. As soon as he drove off those Germans, the French awarded him with the Croix de Guerre, a medal with honor, a great honor. Unfortunately, it took about 75 years for the U.S. government to give him the Legion of Merit. Had he been white, YouTube, he would have walked out of that war with a Medal of Honor. Private Johnson was one of the Harlem Hellfighters, a regiment of black warriors that all performed above and beyond on the field of battle, even after their own government had handed them off to the French like old sneakers. Now, what's worse is, and yes, it does get worse, after they performed so magnificently in combat, YouTube, the United States government actually sent a memorandum to the French government saying don't give them some notion that they're equals, because we don't want them taking that notion back to the United States and demanding equality. You know, the E in DEI. I guess they say the more things change, the more things stay the same. When Henry Johnson comes back to the United States, he's not awarded the Purple Heart. And as a result, there's no notion in his military record of his injury. So he winds up not being able to work because of that injury. He doesn't get any kind of assistance from the army nor the government. And as a result, he ends up dying in 1929, penniless. 75 years to get a medal, to get some sort of honor posthumously. Yet him and all of the Harlem Hellfighters fought with vigor, distinction, honor. And that's what you're giving up. Because you don't want no black folks, or none of those queer folks, or none of those women folk in your army. Good luck. Good luck. Anyway, if you made it to the end without giving up, go ahead and write in the comment section, Drill Sergeant. I made it, Drill Sergeant. And, wait a minute. What time is it?
And now it's time for the throw punch!